You're listening to a Skewed Orbit original podcast.
Time, weather, and always pass.
Friends, would it be the first day of Mercury retrograde if this wasn't the second time that I'm attempting to record this episode? It's almost like, ew, too on brand. Do you know what I mean? I'm really bummed too. I was feeling it. I was in it. I was telling truths. So we'll do the best we can to share again what's crack-a-lackin', what's going on. It's April 1st. What? It's April 1st. I was sharing earlier that I feel like I'm going to close my eyes because there's just a lot I want to share and my brain is really overwhelmed. My body is really tired. And admittedly, I'd love to just be laying in bed in a quiet room somewhere. That's just not in the cards for me right now. So here we go. I mean, listen, I'm glad to be here with you. Okay. But this is going to be a pretty honest episode. Not that I'm ever not honest, but I feel like the performance that I like to offer alongside honesty, because this is a podcast, it is entertainment, may not be as present in this episode, which, you know, might be something that you're really into. I don't know. Stick around. Let's find out. So this morning when I was kind of sitting and I'm like, what do I want to share? What's going on? I just kind of kept coming up with like, I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm sick. I don't feel good. As you guys know, this winter just dragged me behind it, you know, just like it was intentional, like it wanted to. This winter wanted me to feel every scrape, every cut, every wound, every setback, just like sit in it, motherfucker. Like that's how it's felt, to the extent where I don't often get angry with the universe. I'm not typically one who goes there, right? If you guys are an OG, if you've been listening to this for a long time, you know that in the very beginning of my journey, I don't even think I was sober yet. And I had started going to see a therapist in LA. I'd been in and out of therapy my whole life, but what a weird brag. What a weird brag that was. But I was getting back into it. And I remember my therapist said, well, I think something that's going on is I think you're really angry. And I laughed at her and I was like, I'm not angry. And she was like, what do you think anger is? I was like, angry people yell. And that should have been the biggest tell, where she's like, okay, this is going to be fun. Settle up, right? So anger is not really an emotion that I don't visit that emotion a lot. I don't spend a lot of time there. And I've found myself really angry a lot over this winter of like, this thing was supposed to work out. It didn't. Or like, it just felt like the valve of tension was never being released. And I just kept having this feeling of like, oh, you know, spring is going to come and that's when this tension is going to be released and that's when it's all going to make sense. And that's when I've started to come online to like, oh, I don't think that's going to be what happens. Like, and I'm okay with that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that there is something here to be learned. And I think a lot of times when we get pushed up against a wall, it's because the universe is going, I want you to be still. Like the reason why it doesn't feel like I have so much free range of movement and look at all these things and they're all happening as they were supposed to. And like, it's literally the universe being like, please stop, please stop, please stop. Right. And So let me say something before I continue. This is going to be a very personal episode. The reason that I share this, and I'm sure maybe you, like me, were hoping you were going to tune in. You're like, oh, I've been feeling frustrated, but it's April and LaForce is going to like let us know and she's going to give me, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that it's not that episode. I apologize in advance. I too was wanting this, like, it's fresh energy, and it is. It's fresh energy and it's offering us something new. But here's what I want to share. And I'm going to share it specifically from the most vulnerable place and the thing that's the most real for me, because I'm going to trust that's what translates, right? And if nothing else, if you are having a totally different energetic experience, then this will just be for you to listen and go, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not there, right? So it just works out for both of us, okay? It is fresh new energy. And it's offering us to join it and be there, but we have to take all of us there. So I've been sharing a lot about, I've been having weird health stuff happening. I have had these episodes for a while that have been increasing in frequency. And I thought I was having blood sugar issues. I thought all of these different things, right? I'm not going to bore you with all the semantics, but basically it all comes down to I wound up in the emergency room the second week of March. Hold the applause. And because I was like, okay, something is going on and I can't regulate it, you know, and I'm pretty health conscious as far as like what I eat, how often I move my body, breath work, yoga. Like I'm pretty aware of like what my body needs. So I was like, clearly something else is going on. I need to figure it out. Of course, I go to the emergency room. They're like, your vitals are fine. We don't know what else we can do for you. I'm like, great. So also the fun thing was I was going to see my primary doctor 2 days before I wound up in the hospital. Because of course they're like, you're stable now. Do you have a primary? And I'm like, I do. I'm supposed to be there in 2 days. So I show up to my primary, who by the way is a godsend. And I will say for somebody, I'm so grateful that I've always been quite healthy and very rarely have experienced being in hospitals or things like that, right? I'm very grateful for that. But I've always felt some of the biggest angels that have shown up for me in human form have been around health things. I've been so guided in both of my pregnancies. I found like really beautiful OBs or like the people that were there during like my birth, all of these things, my doula, like everybody found me and they were definitely angels and people that were supposed to be there to guide me through things. And my primary is no exception. And Dr. Maida, he's fantastic. And his practice is called stand-up medicine because very stereotypically, he's an Indian man and wanted to be a stand-up. And his family was like, well, you're obviously going to be a doctor. And so he did. And he's this wonderful doctor and he really loves comedy. And so his practice is called stand-up medicine. The Wi-Fi password is laughter. And so we really bonded over comedy and our love of laughter. And so I just feel very protected in his company. And so when I went and I was like, I ended up in the hospital, this is what's going on. He's like, what do you think is happening to you? So I go on and I explain all these things. And he's like, well, why do you think that? And I'm like, well, because nothing else makes sense. So he sits with me for an hour. I've never had a primary that sat with me for an hour. We went through every single thing possible. He listened to every single thing. He sent me home with samples to check my blood sugar. He's like, I want you to monitor your blood sugar for 2 weeks. And then you're going to come back. We're going to look at all your blood work. We're going to look at your, your hormone panel. We're going to figure out what's going on. So I leave, I track my blood sugar. And every single time that I think I'm having a blood sugar drop, I check it and I'm fine. There's nothing that's happening. So it's slowly occurring to me over these 2 weeks. I'm like, I think that these are panic attacks. And I've thought that. My husband had suggested that to me, but I was like, no, like maybe they're somewhat panic induced. I know that I'm stressed out, but I'm like, but I'm so, right? This is what trips us up for those of us that live what we would define as like, evolved or we're self-aware or all of these things, right? So I'm like, certainly if that's what was going on, I would know. And at the end of all this, I go back to Dr. Maida 2 weeks later and he's like, so what's up? And I'm like, so I'm pretty sure these are just panic attacks. And he gives me a very big warm smile. And he said, well, that was my hunch, but tell me about why do you think that's what's happening? So anyway, I won't continue to bore you with the semantics of what's happening, but we talk through everything, and I'm like, basically what I realized again, where it's like the universe will push you up against something to keep you still. For what you can't do for yourself, the universe will do for you. And I don't think that that's punishment. It's none of that, but it's simply like, my mom always used to say, because of course she's such a hippie, like in high school, when I would get grounded, quote unquote, it's so that she could literally ground me. Okay. So if you ever are wondering why I am the way I am, okay, that's what would happen to me in high school. And it's so funny looking back on it now, because I'm like, oh, I need to learn to do that for myself again. Because all of this is basically what I have realized over winter, and this anger and everything that's happening and everything that I feel like is happening for me and to me and blah, 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 was, oh, I am too high functioning for my own good. I am too high functioning for my own good. And so much to unpack. How much time do you have? But ultimately where I was like, oh, because I work for myself, but I'm also a working mother, and I want to be a great mother, but I also want to be really good at what I do. And then I want to, I want to be this famous comedian and speaker. So I'm going to put everything I have into every single thing I do. And that's no problem. We can take this on and we can do this other thing. And like, how many times have you guys already heard this from me of like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there is always a price to pay. There is always a consequence for anything one way or the other. If we choose to do less, the consequence is not as much is going to get done. If we choose to take on everything, the consequence is your body is going to do for you what maybe your brain can't. Your body is going to produce panic attacks because it wants to slow you down. And, I'm going to be sharing obviously more and more about the panic attacks. And because I know some of you may be like, I'm sorry, can we go back to that whole thing? And so there is so much to unpack and so much that's coming through. But I think for today's episode, and all of this boils down to, I thought I was going to be going into spring, and it's like, spring is sprung and now we're going to go. And like, now, like literally for me, I was like, oh, now we get to go fast. That's what I was looking forward to. Oh, now we get to go fast. And it'll almost make me emotional, because the universe is like, we don't think you understand that going fast is the thing that's actually not servicing you. And what we're wanting you to learn is pace. What we're wanting you to learn, and this capacity for fame, for more shows, for more listeners, for more opportunity, for more time spent with your family, better health, getting more fit, all of these things that you're quote unquote wanting to call in, all these things you're putting on a vision board, you're manifesting all these things. They're not going to come from you being able to do more. They're actually going to come from you learning how much can you do. And it's not even about more or less. Like, that's not what this is about. It's just about like, you have to actually separate and learn what your pace is. And in the first episode I attempted to record, I started by talking about how over social media I am. That everybody is there to tell you like, here's how I got my body back. Here's how I loved my body as it is. Here's how my face looks perfect. Here's how I've accepted my face as the way it looks. Here's how my business made, like 6 figures this year. Here's how I learned to do what I need to do with my business with only having, 4,000 followers. And it's like, any take on anything that you could possibly imagine exists. And there's something about that that's beautiful, but there's also something about that that's exhausting. And I realized like, I don't want to contribute to that. And in this cosmic symphony that we're all making together as humans, like, what do I actually want to produce? Like, what do I want my part to be? And the answer is, I don't think I really know to the depth of which it could be. Like, I think I've gotten so good at being as high functioning as I am that I'm like, well, look, but I can put out all these things. And that's because I've learned how to compartmentalize. That's because I've learned like what matters and what doesn't. And that's because like, sure, yes, all of those things are true. I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily bad about what I've been doing, or perhaps in your case, if you are nodding to all of this and this is you, it's not saying that what we've been doing is bad or wrong. I think it's just that there's a deeper way of doing it. And I think that there's a more sustainable way of doing it. And I think that there's something more that can only be found, oh God, by doing less. And I think some of it is like picking your battles and knowing what is it that you really want to say and what is it that you really want to do and how much can you actually take on? Like what really is yours to take on? And I'm pausing for a second because I'm just like, there's just so much to be said. I feel like I could just talk myself in circles, but what would that even like feel like? And I think for me, you know, I talked about this in that episode with Mystic Rain where I was like, I think because of my drinking and playing small and like I did that for so long that there was this need to go in the opposite of like I can make up for lost time, like I can do it. And I think I could keep going and doing exactly what I'm doing now and be successful. But I think the choice to slow down and really figure out what I want to do and what do I really want to say and how do I want to do it, and like taking like the year. Let's just say you and I decide that from now until the rest of the year, we're really going to be mindful of what do we actually want to hold? Like in two hands, in the space that we have, like, do you really need to balance all of those friendships? Do you really need to balance being the social chair of all of your friends? Do you really need to balance holding on to all those people who don't call you back? Do you really need to go on 7 dates a week in order to find like the person that you're going to be with? Do you really need to take on that much at work because everybody else is? Do you really need to like all of these things that we do, that I do? Do I really need to say yes to all of those things? Do I really need to cart my kids from here to there for it to be beneficial? Do I really need to like, probably not. You know, do I need to do 9 shows a week for it to be as potent as doing 3 shows a week? Do I need, you know, all of these things? And, you know, I've been on this in the beginning of the year. I heard like, this is the year to now transform the outside to meet the inside. I don't remember if I ever shared about that, but that was like what I really realized, like all of the last few years has been like internally putting everything together. And it was like, what do you actually like to wear? How do you like to wear your hair? You're probably going to notice over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do my hair differently. And because I'm typically always like, oh, top knot's fine. And I do love a top knot. She looks cute. But it's like, okay, well, how else do you want to express yourself? Like, how do you like, what do you want to wear? How do you want to wear things? How do you, you know, all these things that seem so simple, like, what colors do you want on your website? What do you like? Just all of these things of like really slow down and figure out like, what is your steez, girl? Like, what is your style? How do you want to move through the world? And I have allowed the pace of the outside world to take precedent and me be convinced that the only way that this is going to be able to work is for me to be able to do the pace of the outside world. And yet again, where it's like, that's not real. Everyone else is burnt out too. That's also why the cacophony that exists on social media just sounds like this. Do, don't, in, out. Because I think even those of us that are being mindful and like, that are wanting to contribute and make, again, just forgive the metaphor, but like beautiful music, like we're even still allowing ourselves to get caught up in it. And like I've done enough of the work to know that like I don't want my art and my voice to be like, you know, Bali retreats and all breath work and all, like I think we can get lost in like the spiritual modality of all of it, but I also don't want it to go the other way, which is like not integrating it and not like, I want to give weight to kind of all of it. And I also want to be able to talk to people in a way that feels relatable. And so it's just all of these things that are coming up for me. And I'm like, oh, again, the universe will do for us what we can't do. Like my brain has gotten so good at compartmentalizing stress. My connection to spirit has gotten so good that I thought I was handling all these things. And, you know, I've been doing, you guys know, I've been on this like body journey and clearing out all this stuff in my body. And like my body is now the most sensitive part of me. It always has been, but I was neglecting it and not listening to it. And now that I've kind of like brought it up in collaboration, essentially body, mind, and soul, my body was the only piece left going, oh, I'm sorry, this is way too fast. Okay, so we're going to give you the feeling of impending doom ever so often to get you to slow the F down. And so there's a part of me where like, I was embarrassed. I'm like, I don't want to share about these panic attacks because, you know, I've carved out the space of that, you know, I want people to listen to me and feel guided. And it's like, that's the number one reason why you should share it. The number one reason why you should be fully authentic. Because I always bitch about how much I hate people who, and I'm speaking freely here, but like, I don't hate anybody, but you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's annoying all these people being like, I'm an expert and I'm going to solve it. And this is how you're going to do it. It's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be the perfect example of like, this is why life is equally hard and beautiful. It's both things. And when we can accept it as being both things, then ultimately it's just, you're left with it that it's beautiful. And yeah, my life is really hard right now. And it doesn't, and it's not me being like, my life is hard. Again, my life is incredibly beautiful. But it is. It's hard. It's hard. There's a lot on the plate. It's hard. It feels some days like my dreams are far beyond my reach. And it feels like I can't do any of these things fast enough and everything that I want to share with the world. And like, we don't have to feel this way. And if we just all come together, then we could feel this way. And I'm sure you guys all have your own shit. You have a parent who's sick. You're watching somebody die. You're grieving somebody who's died. You feel alone. You know, you're going through some real health stuff, or you're trying to get out of $30,000 worth of debt, or, you know, you let go of a relationship that's incredibly painful, even though you know that you're not supposed to be in that relationship anymore. You keep dreaming about that person that you've tried cutting cords with a million times. And why do you keep dreaming about them, or whatever it is, right? Like, we're all there. And so I really just, yeah, what would it be like to spend just the rest of this year allowing ourselves to get caught up with the slowest part of ourselves, right? Like my mom always says that, like, only go as fast as the slowest part of you will go. And so what would that feel like to do that? I think I'm actually asking you guys, like, what would that be like for us to do that for the rest of the year? And like, it's funny because my numerology for the year is 5. And 5 is all about putting the work in. And so there was this part of me that was like, this is the year, like we get to work. And I think that's the other thing is like, but we already are doing it. Like we can't move anything and make anything go any faster. So even just that, like, actual true acceptance, like the other thing I've heard all winter from the universe is like, can you just trust us? I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. And they're like, but can you trust us though? I'm like, yeah, okay. And they're like, okay, but you're not. Like, you keep saying you are, but you're not, you know? And I think so much of that for me is like, relax your crack. Allow this spring to bloom at the pace that it needs to, and allow Just allow. Can you allow everything to be exactly as it is? Everything is as filled with tension and frustration and beauty and simplicity, and like, can you just allow all of it to live at the same time? And can you trust that what you're doing is enough? Like, fuck trust in the universe. Like, do you actually trust yourself? Because I don't think I fully have until this moment. It could like make me really emotional. Because I think that's the thing, is we all go so fast that we're like, oh, well, we know, like, this is the thing, and it's just like, it's all a process. It's all a process. And let's not block our own blessings from what we really want to do, what's really available to us, by like white knuckling and thinking that we know exactly what it's supposed to be. And so I think this, obviously this is a pretty, I think heavy conversation. I don't know what kind of conversations you guys are having, but like, let's just take spring. Let's take spring. Let's enjoy it. Let's allow it to be what it needs to be and really take stock. Like, again, that 5-year that I thought it was going to be about like work. And it's like, well, it is, but it's the work of learning what is enough. And when we're actually putting out and slowing down and saying what we want to, it's not this ever churning need of like, do, don't, in, out. Right. And like, we can get to a place where we truly trust ourselves and we trust the universe. And so if something is not yielding the immediate result, we know that it's here to teach us something, and we know that it's leading to the next thing, rather than everything and it is, a lot of you are listening and you're probably like, well, it's the patriarchal, society of it all. And absolutely, that's absolutely true. But it's also just the whirlwind and the pace of life and how everything is, and that everything has to be together. And then you have to go here and you have to go there. And I think for me, this spring is just learning about that true pace. And if it's enough for me, then it's enough. And learning that radical, steadfast, like how to truly yield my own energy. And I think that's, again, when I, as I wrap us up here, of going back to the very beginning of the episode, and it was like, I know a lot of people, you probably came here being like, okay, like we're going through this, if you're an eclipse girly or like, an astro girly, and you're like, okay, we're going through all these things, and now, or maybe you don't even subscribe to that, or maybe you're just on the spiritual journey of wherever you are. But I'm sure you did tune in with this expectation of like, okay, well, tell me it's going to be better now because we're going into, this new fresh energy. And I think, isn't it interesting that I'm recording this on Fool's Day, and the idea of like the Fool in the tarot is actually like a very beautiful thing. Like, we always see the Fool as something to be like, oh, they were fooled, or they're an idiot, or this or that. But really, it's like the Fool's journey is like choosing to see something as though you're seeing it for the first time, and choosing to move through something as though it's all new. And if you were to move through the next, again, we'll say the whole year, but let's say the next 2 months, April and May, and move through those as though everything you were encountering for the first time. Everything you were creating for the first time. How would you do it differently, and what would you do, and what would you let go of? And really this idea, again, let's keep going on more metaphors, of like spring cleaning and really using this time to not go fast, but rather to take stock and realign and really get that body, mind, and soul aligned and really truly learn what it means to trust yourself. Because I want to be the person who leaves money on the table. I want to be the person who is willing to say no to something that everybody else would be like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're saying no to that. But it's because I trust myself and I know, yes, that may seem like it's the thing, but I know if I say yes to that thing, it takes me down a totally different road. And that doesn't mean not staying open to opportunity, but being so true to who I am that I make mistakes by learning for the first time, and I'm not making mistakes because I'm doing the same thing that I've done time and time again, right? I've said this before, like only new mistakes. And if you're feeling that tension like I've been feeling, it's like, congratulations, you fucking made it. Like there is something really beautiful about when we get to these places, because it's like, great, it is time for things to change. And that's why everything feels so constricting. And it's that the tools that you've been using and the things that you've been doing have gotten you this far. And now it's like graduation day. It's great. You're graduating. You're moving on to something new. So is this fresh new energy. There is the opportunity to seize this new way of being, this new way of walking through the world. And that is my offer to you, which is, are you going to be wise enough to play the fool and go on a new journey and do it differently? Because God, do I hope I am. You know what I mean? Oh, what a winner. I mean, dude, this winter, it about fucking took me down. I think I've said that a couple times on here, but yeah, let's do some new things and let's, also keep nurturing the things that we all have been doing. And, but it's like, I know if you're listening, it's because you feel deeply about your purpose and you feel deeply about helping humanity and you feel deeply about this work. So let's not blow through it. Let's slow down and let's do it the way that it's really meant to be done. Cool? All right. Well, we're in agreement on that. So yeah, I finally in the middle of April, I have a few days to myself. And my husband's going to take the boys to my in-laws. And so I'm really going to use that time to really like dig into all of this. So I'm really, not that this is going to be like a series of something that we keep coming back to, but I'll definitely be sharing more about what this kind of evolution of self is like, because I think it's a really beautiful opportunity that a lot of us have. And I do think that the rest of the year is going to start to really pick up. And so really using this time to get grounded before it feels like, whoop, the end of the year just, comes in really quickly. So that's it. That's what I got for you today. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that I am physically healthy. And I'm grateful that the winter is over. So that is what it is. Coming up, my books are open. So if you would like to work with me, I offer creative consults. These are something that are very near and dear to my heart. I've worked with so many of you, which has been so beautiful. You can go to my website, rachelleforce.com, to learn more about what those may look like. I always tell people that they're really kind of like couture consults, because it's really about what you're looking for and really curtailing it to your needs. So you can always book a free 15-minute call with me to kind of share what it is that you're working through, to see if that would be a good fit for you to do that with me. So we can do ongoing sessions, or you can just book one session. Also, my sessions for the Misfit Path are open. So if you haven't been aware of the Misfit Light or participating in that, that is a weekly series that I do over on Instagram. We go live on Instagram Monday evenings at 8:15 p.m. And then the recording of that is posted on YouTube and Instagram. And so that also comes with a free workbook. You can sign up for that and get the workbook every week. The Misfit Path reading is really about hearing from you where you are, like figuring out like where are you on your path, right? And what are either action steps, tools, things like that we can kind of get you on the path and kind of set you up for the next 3 to 12 months of kind of getting you to that next big place that you want to be. These readings include Reiki, oracle cards, visions, spirit guides. Sometimes it's just very earthly politics of like, here's where you are, here's where you want to be. What do we need to set up in place for you in order to get there? So they're really beautiful sessions. And if that's something that you feel called to do, I would love to work with you and kind of get you on your misfit path. So I've got those coming up. And also Tired Mom, my new half-hour comedy special, drops on YouTube May 1st, which is my 38th birthday. So I'm really, really excited for you all to see that. So if you've not subscribed to my YouTube, I highly recommend jumping over there. I also have a monthly newsletter that goes out every month. They're episodes kind of a lot like today's, kind of giving up what is the energy coming up into the month, what's going on. And so definitely sign up for those. All of those links will be here in the show notes. Anything that I've left out, guess what? We'll be back together next week, baby, and we catch up on all of those. If any of this resonated for you, will you please DM me and let me know? I would love to know what's going on with y'all. So I trust that this made it to you exactly when you needed it. I'm so glad that you're here. Tune out, tune in. Love you, mean it.
Time, weather, and always the past.